Bye-bye from me. Thanks for watching.
Weather now. A weather system there close to Buenos Aires and the south of the continent slammed by weather
for joining me.
It's not about opinion.
It's like a brainstorm between us all and our colleagues, isn't it?
You don't have to take yourself seriously when you're talking about serious subjects.
There may not be a script, but there are facts.
This is going to make me sound like such a dweeb, but actually it's quite fun.
More fun than go to the pub.
Depends who's when.
For what you need to know, when you need to know it, listen to Newscast every day on BBC Sounds.
I will give away the vast majority of my money. It's my full-time focus for the rest of my life.
Every time I lost, I just did a deep dive into the reason why we lost.
Wenn Menschen bei uns in Europa angekommen sind, dann finde ich, haben sie ein Recht darauf, menschlich behandelt zu werden.
When big names talk, they talk to us.
Hello there, I'm Ben Brown and this is The Context here on BBC News. And tonight on the programme, Israel launches airstrikes on targets in the Syrian capital.
These are historic, long-time rivalries between different groups in the south-west of Syria, Bedouins, the Druze community, and it led to an unfortunate situation and a misunderstanding, it looks like, between the Israeli side and the Syrian side. So we've been engaged with them all morning long and all night long with both sides.
My brothers, the Druze citizens of Israel, the situation in Sweden, the situation in southwestern Syria is very serious. The IDF is operating, the Air Force is operating, other forces are operating. We are acting to save our Druze brothers and to eliminate the regime's gangs.
The Americans under President Trump have really been trying to nurture a relationship with the new Syrian government under al-Sharaa. They see an opportunity there. It's key also to their relationship with Turkey.
Hello, well, we have plenty to cover in the next hour, including those airstrikes launched by Israel on Syria's military headquarters and near the presidential palace in Damascus. Israel claims it is trying to protect the minority Druze community in the south of Syria after days of sectarian clashes there. We'll have full reaction and analysis. And also on the programme, the row within Donald Trump's Republican Party over the Jeffrey Epstein saga continues as the president says his Attorney General should release whatever information she considers to be credible on the late sex offender. And the UK's Labour Party suspends 4 rebel MPs for breaching party discipline. All 4 of them voted against the government's recent welfare reforms earlier on this month. So Israel has been carrying out airstrikes on Syria's military headquarters and the presidential palace in Damascus. 3 people have been killed and 34 have been injured in the attacks on the capital. Around the world and across the United Kingdom, you're watching BBC News.
This is Frontier Country.
Wherever you get your BBC podcasts.
Now, President Trump has called on his Attorney General, Pam Bondi, to release, quote, whatever she thinks is credible about the late sex offender Jeffrey Epstein. Well, it comes as anger is growing among some parts of the president's MAGA support base. Harry, thank you very much indeed. Harry Farley there, our political correspondent. The security brief is coming up next. You're watching BBC News.
Hello, Thomas, thanks for joining me with your latest
It's been a
weather
fine
update.
day of weather across.
Menschlich behandelt zu werden.
Inspiring
When the
arts
big names
and
talk,
culture
they
on
talk to
BBC
us.
News.
You're gambling with World War III.
Это нарушает нашу безопасность.
Расширение НАТО.
As a military strategic planner, a former planner, you don't want politicians telegraphing what your next moves are going to be.
The U.S. will take over the Gaza Strip, and we will do a job with it too.
A peacekeeping force does not exist with a ceasefire.
Well, welcome to the BBC Security Brief with me, Ben Brown. And Europe's top diplomat, Kaja Kallas, has been sounding the alarm on Russia's increasing use of chemical weapons in Ukraine, citing German and Dutch intelligence reports that Moscow has used chemical weapons at least 9,000 times since the start of the invasion. Speaking to reporters after a gathering of foreign affairs ministers in Brussels, she said the reports were of great concern. Well, with me to discuss all of this and also the latest details on US weapon shipments to Ukraine is our resident security analyst, former senior British military officer and assault helicopter pilot in the British military, Mikey Kay. And as always, Mikey will deliver his brief as he would to his generals. So, Mikey, let's start off then with what Kaja Kallas has been saying and more about these reports. Do the German and Dutch intelligence agencies that I was mentioning there, do they cite exactly which chemical weapons have been used? Yeah, it's all fascinating stuff as ever, Mikey. Thank you very much indeed for the moment. But don't go away. We're going to take a quick break, but the security brief does continue in just a moment. You're watching BBC News.
My dad was a farmer, but he also had a radio talk show for farmers who...
When the big names talk, they talk to us.
Hello again. You are watching the Security Brief here on BBC News with me, Ben Brown, and Mikey Kay, our resident security and military expert and analyst. And we're going to be discussing a little bit more now the latest developments in the war in Ukraine. And we're joined by John Foreman, I'm pleased to say, the former UK Defence Attaché to Moscow and to Kyiv. John Foreman, thank you very much indeed for being with us. Well, we've been discussing these German and Dutch intelligence reports citing Russia's use of chemical weapons in Ukraine. I mean, what do you make of them, and what can Ukraine and the international community do about this? John Foreman, thank you so much for being with us, and our thanks to, of course, to Mikey Kay, as ever, for his brilliant and incisive analysis of the latest situation in the Ukraine-Russia war. You've been watching the Security Brief here on BBC News. Thank you for your company.
Hello from the BBC Sports Centre. I'm Mark Benstead. The first of the quarter-finals at the Women's European Championships is underway. Two-time winners Norway are in action against Italy. It is goalless at half-time in Geneva. Plenty more on all those stories on the BBC Sport website, including more on the Women's Euros. As I mentioned, half-time in the first of those quarter-finals between Norway and Italy. The winners of that game will play the winners of the match between England and Sweden, which takes place tomorrow. That's all your sport for now, though. Goodbye.
Hello, thanks for joining me. It's been a fine day of weather. Thanks for joining me. Let's take a look at the weather around the globe.
Helps viewers trust what they're hearing, because when you can empathise, it helps you get an understanding of the bigger picture.
Hello there, and a very warm welcome to The Context USA here on BBC News with me, Ben Brown, in London.
And me, Sumi Somaskanda in Washington. Tonight, all eyes once again on the Middle East as Israel strikes targets in Syria.
These are historic, long-time rivalries between different groups in the southwest of Syria, Bedouins, the Druze community, and it led to an unfortunate situation and a misunderstanding, it looks like, between the Israeli side and the Syrian side. So we've been engaged with them all morning long and all night long with both sides.
My brothers, the Druze citizens of Israel, the situation in Sweden, the situation in southwestern Syria is very serious. The IDF is operating, the Air Force is operating, other forces are operating. We are acting to save our Druze brothers and to eliminate the regime's gangs.
Israel, yes, is saying that this is about defending the Druze, but of course what this is much more in a strategic sense is about is Israel trying to prevent military forces of the new government in Damascus getting to the southwest of the country, closer to Israel's border.
And to discuss those dramatic developments in Syria and the other big stories of the day, we have our panel in the next hour. Annika Green, founding partner of Reach Global Strategies and former member of President George W. Bush's speechwriting team, and also Rebecca Piercy, Democratic strategist and former political director to Senator Elizabeth Warren.
Hello and a very warm welcome to The Context USA. A little bit later, we'll have the latest on the president's feud with the Federal Reserve Chair, Jerome Powell. We'll also unpack the issue that is shaping up to be one of the biggest threats to President Trump's very strong support base.
But first, let us start with the latest from the Middle East and the US Secretary of State, Marco Rubio. OK, Annika and Rebecca, stay with us. We're going to be talking to you about many other big stories in the rest of the programme. But for the moment, thank you very much indeed. Around the world and across the UK, this is BBC News.
Disinformation. You think you're winning.
You make up yours. Check on BBC Weather.
Welcome back to The Context USA. On Tuesday, President Trump told reporters he did not understand why his supporters were interested in what he called a boring case of Jeffrey Epstein. The sex offender died in prison 6 years ago while awaiting trial. His death was ruled to be suicide.
But it's how the Trump White House has been handling questions over that case that has really prompted
An interesting note that the Speaker of the House, Mike Johnson, said today, we should put everything out there and let the people decide. So let's see if there's any movement on that. But Rebecca and Annika, we're going to come back to you both in a moment after we take a short break. When we come back on The Context, we're going to be talking about the very latest on Donald Trump's immigration policy, his deportation program, and we'll also be looking at cuts to aid and public broadcasting here in the U.S. So stay with us here on The Context. We're back in a few minutes.
Hello, Thomas. Thanks for joining me with your latest. It's been a fine day of weather across.
Watch on BBC iPlayer.
Inspiring travel on the BBC.
Welcome back to The Context USA. I'm Sumi Somaskanda in Washington.
And I'm Ben Brown here in London.
Don't notice launch, Iran!
America's new Space Force, seen recently in action, intercepting Iranian missiles and targeting nuclear sites, is now building a missile shield, the Golden Dome. Well, more on that in just a few moments, but now to the latest in President Trump's immigration policy and his focus on mass deportations of undocumented migrants. Now, you might remember he told our chief North America correspondent Gary O'Donoghue in their interview this week that he is focused on deporting what he called criminal migrants.
Okay, really interesting reporting there from our colleague Jonathan Beale. We have to take a short break. We're back in a moment. Around the world and across the UK, this is BBC News. Before we finish out the hour, we just want to spend a few minutes on a story we are keeping our eye on because there's potential for huge impacts in the furthest corners of the US and the globe. Okay, well, we have run out of time. Annika and Rebecca, thank you both so very much for joining us today on The Context.
Yeah, thank you very much indeed for your company. We'll see you very soon. Goodbye from both of us.
Hello from the BBC Sports Centre. I'm Mark Benstead. The first of the quarter-finals at the Women's European Championships is underway. And that's all the sport for now.
Hello, thanks for joining me.